Welcome. I'm Raul Lowry Contreras, and this is the Contreras Report International Edition. Now, before we get into the international subjects for tonight, let's talk about American politics. We are in the last 3.5 weeks of the presidential campaign. A lot of things are happening, and we need to pay attention because this is the final stretch run. Headline: Political damage on Donald J. Trump's campaign from his COVID-19 diagnosis. It can be measured, the damage to his campaign. Trust me, there was damage. Latino Decisions is a relatively new polling firm founded by a group of Hispanic college professors. It's based at UCLA, the University of California, Los Angeles. It specializes in polling Hispanics on political issues of the day. It has developed a rolling survey in which they survey 400 people a day and add today's results into the previous 2 days. That's how they get the rolling average. Today we are discussing what, if any, effect the president's COVID-19 infection and hospitalization has had on his campaign for re-election. Before Trump's infection, Latinos Decisions measured the president's favorability among Hispanics at 29% favorable. After the infection was announced, 21%, an 8-point drop. Biden's favorability before Trump's infection was 60%, and after, 7 points higher at 67%. On Hispanic vote choices, Trump was at 25% Hispanics planning to vote for him before the infection, 20% after, a 5-point drop. Biden's was 65 before and 71 after, a 6-point upward movement. Among Hispanic Republicans, like me, 31% of Hispanic Republicans plan to vote for the president. Only 18% plan to vote for him after the infection. Hispanic Republicans, before infection, disapproved of Trump by 57%. After the infection was announced, his disapproval rate went up to 72% of Hispanics. Democratic Congressman Senator Bob Menendez, a Cuban American from New Jersey, and Representative Frank Pallone Jr., also of New Jersey, have written letters to the State Department demanding the United States end all aid to the Republic of Azerbaijan because, the congressman claimed, Azerbaijan is attacking Armenia. That is false, and is a position pushed by these congressmen by the nonprofit (Section 501c3 of the IRS Code), close parentheses, which is a charity group. It's called the Armenian National Committee of America, ANCA, A-N-C-A, which I believe should be registered as a foreign agent representing Armenia. It doesn't represent Americans. It's chartered by the IRS to be a charity organization, not a lobby organization for a foreign government. If an individual or group uses a non-profit legal organization to represent a foreign country, they should not be a tax-free charity organization. ANCA represents Armenia, not the U.S. For example, when Armenia objected to the nomination of a seasoned, experienced diplomat, a professional, to be ambassador to Azerbaijan, ANCA, representing Armenia, objected to the nomination. When Azerbaijan was seeking foreign financing for extending a rail system through Azerbaijan so cargo could travel from China to Europe without moving an inch on Russian territory, ANCA objected to any American, even a private American help for the rail system. Their excuse, Azerbaijan had closed all rail lines from it into Armenia when the two countries were at war in the 1990s. Those lines, those rail lines, are still blocked because Armenia occupies 20% of Azerbaijan's national territory and has for the last 26 years. When Armenia schemed with Iran to illegally get around American-imposed sanctions on Iran, ANCA, allegedly an American organization, said nothing because Iran used Armenia to move goods in and out that were covered by the sanctions. When Armenia recently voted against a United Nations resolution criticizing Russia's occupation of the Crimean Peninsula that belongs to the Ukraine, ANCA said nothing. ANCA's business is representing Armenia. Here, for example, ANCA is asking Israel to stop selling arms to Azerbaijan. Why does an American charity group have anything to do with trying to change the trading policy of another nation? Quote, Yerevan, October 6, Armen Press, that's an Armenian organization. Armenian National Committee of America, ANCA, Chairman Rafi Hamparian, in a frank and direct letter to Israeli Ambassador to the United States, Ron Dermer, asked that Israel immediately halt the sale or transfer of lethal or dual-use material and technology to Azerbaijan, unquote. ANCA reports to Armenia, not to the American people. And it is ANCA behind the senators and representatives demanding a cutoff of aid to Azerbaijan, Menendez and Pallone. And it's not just with kind words and pretty pleas, it is with campaign cash in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's all in my book, The Armenian Lobby and U.S. Foreign Policy. Now, some more silliness from Armenian backers closer to home. Here from the Attorney General of California, Javier Becerra, who I supported for that job. Quote, our hearts and prayers go out to our brothers and sisters in the Armenian community as we work together to address what appear to be a series of violent attacks against them here in California. Crimes motivated by hate have a corrosive effect on our society and cannot be tolerated, unquote. Note to General Becerra, the only violence seen in California is from Armenians and their supporters. In July, this last July, thousands of Armenians protested at the Azerbaijan consulate in Los Angeles. Violence against 24 Azerbaijanis carrying flags in support of Azerbaijan was perpetrated by Armenians. The LA police are still investigating the Armenian attacks as hate crimes. Just what is Becerra referring to? Back then, Becerra said nothing about the hate crime by Armenian radicals in the middle of West Los Angeles in broad daylight. No condemnation, no word from Attorney General Becerra when a minority group, Azerbaijani Americans, were hospitalized, brutally attacked, and injured, just for being Azerbaijani and carrying Azerbaijani flags. What about the fighting that started on September 27th on Azerbaijan's national territory? It seems that the Stanford-educated Becerra isn't up on current events. Armenians are firing missiles that they get from Russia on Azerbaijan's second largest city from Azerbaijani territory, not from Armenia, including cluster bombs killing and injuring Azerbaijani civilians. And Attorney General Becerra talks about imaginary attacks on Armenians in California. Someone needs to bring him up to date. Armenian terrorists murdered 3 Turkish diplomats in Los Angeles and Santa Barbara, and a group of Armenians in Los Angeles conducted a widespread reign of bombing terror throughout Southern California. From the Associated Press, quote, Nagorno-Karabakh officials have said more than 150 servicemen on their side have died so far. Azerbaijani authorities haven't given details on their military casualties, but said 30 civilians were killed and 150 more wounded. The fighting continues, all of it on Azerbaijan territory. In the meanwhile, Azerbaijani forces have liberated several villages and one city that have been occupied by Armenian forces for 27 years. Another headline about President Trump. He bails on the second presidential debate that was scheduled for October 15th. Donald Trump claims he won the first debate and that the Presidential Debate Commission is trying to protect Joe Biden. The reality is, only Donald Trump thinks he won the first debate, he and his family. From the International Business Times, quote, President Donald Trump on Thursday rejected plans to change next week's second presidential debate to a virtual affair in light of his coronavirus infection, calling it a waste of time. Trump said on Fox Business that he would not, quote, waste my time, unquote, on a virtual matchup with Democratic rival Joe Biden, citing the ability of moderators to cut off his mic. He earned that from his first appearance, from the first debate. Instead, Trump said he would hold a rally, despite the chance he still would be contagious. On Fox, Trump said, quote, I'm not going to waste my time on a virtual debate. That is not acceptable to us. I beat him easily in the first debate. They're trying to protect Biden. Everybody is. From the National Broadcasting Company, NBC, we have, quote, the president's threat to walk away from a virtual debate is a power move that seems almost certain to backfire, said Liam Donovan, a Republican strategist. This debate may be the last opportunity to score a game-changing moment or otherwise hope to impact the trajectory of this race before it's too late, he added. It's also one of the few remaining speed bumps for Vice President Biden, and Trump would be doing Joe a real favor by letting him off the hook. Another subject involving the president. One of President Trump's most loyal supporters is a retired Fresno State, Cal State Fresno, history professor named Victor Davis Hanson. He's an example, and here's an example from an article in the National Review that he wrote. The National Review was founded by William F. Buckley, who was quite comfortable in labeling racists when he saw one, including columnist, writer, and former candidate for president Patrick Buchanan. Hanson writes, quote, over the past 3-week script, the myth that Trump ignored Russian bounties on American soldiers in Afghanistan led to the yarn that Trump was dismantling the post office to sabotage mail-in voting, which led to the fiction that Trump mocked American war dead as, quote, suckers and, quote, losers, which was followed by Bob Woodward's concoction that a callous Trump didn't care about those who were infected, which led to the illegally obtained Trump tax returns, followed by the secretly recorded phone calls with the First Lady leaked by a former staffer and friend. That is a long and convoluted sentence. Then he continues, and then all that careful planning was abruptly sidetracked by the president's infection, unquote. Now, as far as I know, me, Raul Lowry Contreras, who's been doing this for 3 decades, I've researched Professor Hanson up one side and down there. I have looked to see if Professor Victor Davis Hanson has ever served in the American military. I have found no evidence that he did. So that's interesting, because he said that that was a hoax about Trump allegedly calling American soldiers that died suckers and losers. Thus, he, Victor Davis Hanson, does not know that the thunderous silence from retired U.S. Marine Generals John Kelly, former Chief of Staff to the President of the United States, and James Mattis, former Secretary of Defense, the most powerful single individual man in the world outside the President of the United States, both of whom served as Trump cabinet officers, speaks to Trump's views about military people. Their silence speaks to Trump's views about military people. Trump said the things alleged in the Atlantic magazine article. Not one of the people around him who have defended him were with him during the whole trip, or were with him only part of the day involved. The day it was raining and Trump didn't go to the National Cemetery, the American cemetery, where 1,800 Marines who died in the Battle of Belleau Wood, the most critical battle of World War I after America entered the war. He didn't go. Others went, other Americans went, and Angela Merkel from Germany went, and President Macron of France went, even though it was raining. They went by car. Nonetheless, reporters from different organizations, including Fox News, the Associated Press, and going back again to Fox News, have corroborated elements of the story. Different reporters corroborated different elements of the story. But when you put all of their articles together, or their appearances on television, yes, Trump said it. Trump said those things. Adding up the whole picture and the silence from General Mattis and General Kelly, the statements were truly spoken by Donald Trump. Lastly, President Trump, his close associates, and fanatical supporters at Fox News and One American News have joined the president in a hysterical fit accusing Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and other Democrats, and former CIA Director John Brennan of treason and criminal activity for suggesting a relationship between the Trump campaign and Russia in 2016. Yes, treason. T-R-E-A-S-O-N. The problem is that the president and his supporters do not know what treason is. The Constitution defines it. It is defined in the Constitution as, quote, making war on the United States, or, quote, aiding and abetting an enemy during time of war. So how about charging crimes? Were crimes committed here? Here is the answer from a prominent Trump supporter, former federal prosecutor Andy McCarthy, who's famous for locking up the Arab jihadist from the Egyptian, the blind man who was the brains behind the bombing in 1993 of the World Trade Center in New York City. Here is how he sees it. Quote, the Obama administration investigation of Trump was not treason. There was no obvious criminal offense. There were instead gross abuses of power, and such abuses often are more serious than criminal offenses. For President Trump, it would be more useful to urge that voters deny a return to power to members of a Democratic administration that abused it than to demand prosecution for crimes that cannot be proven. Treason was not committed and crimes were not committed. So, Mr. Trump, quit talking about the greatest political crime in American history. It did not occur. Okay, I want to say to you, thank you for being there for the Contreras Report International Edition, and we'll look forward to seeing you in a few days. And if you can, subscribe to this and you'll get them all. We will be producing them hopefully once a week, and we welcome your presence. Thank you again.